Now, a successful triathlon requires more than simply trying to get from point A to point B as quickly as possible. It requires pacing. Now, pacing is something that we hear about time and time again within endurance sports. And for a very good reason, because I'm sure that many of you watching this right now have experienced the effects of a badly paced workout or a badly paced race and the crashing, burning feeling that you get from this. Now, to help us avoid doing this, we try to keep track of things like our pace, our speed, our heart rate, our power, amongst other metrics, which are all fairly easy to do within cycling and running, but not so easy within swimming. And what's more worrying is that the swim is the first leg of the triathlon, yet there isn't really any way of gauging our effort or our pace within that. So if we do get our pacing wrong within that first leg of the triathlon, what could those knock-on effects be for later on in the race? Well, to hopefully prevent you from making these mistakes and happening to you during a triathlon, I'm going to be explaining how you can better pace your swim. And to help highlight the benefits of a well-paced swim, we've teamed up with Form, and I'm going to be using their very fancy new Form goggles with an augmented reality display within them. And I'm going to be using them to dial into my ideal race pace. In a race situation, it's very easy to get carried away with the excitement of the race start and go off way too fast. We also have the anticipation of perhaps being swum over by other swimmers. But before you know it, you have just gone and set yourself a PB for the first 400 meters in a triathlon. That is not going to end well. In fact, it's likely that you will end up swimming slower for that entire swim duration than had you actually gone out a little bit more reserved and swum it more evenly paced for the entire swim. Now, this is something that was drilled into me time and time again as a very excitable youngster turning up to swim practice, and I'm sure many of you have been on the receiving end of a coach lecturing you on the same advice. So to prove that they are talking some sense, I thought we're going to have a little bit of fun now. So I'm going to start off by performing a 400-meter time trial, pretty much in my usual fashion, which is going off far too hard from the start. I'm well known for my horrific pacing, so I'm just going to race this as I normally would. And then after that time trial, I'm going to have a nice long recovery, and I'm actually going to switch my goggles over and put the Form swimming goggles on. Now, within one of these lenses, I have a see-through augmented reality display showing me my metrics in real time, which includes things like my pace, my stroke rate, stroke count, distance, my calories, and so on. Now, obviously today I'm going to be focusing on my pace and my lap times. And I'm actually, before I set off, I'm going to work out a suitable overall time for the 400 meters and the pace for that. So probably means that I'm going to start out a little bit easier on the first 100, but hopefully a faster time overall. Let's see. Ready. Go. Okay, so first 400 meters on, just with my normal goggles on, I went a time of 4 minutes 30, so fairly good time. That actually works out at a pace of 107, or just over 107 per 100. But I didn't do that. No, I went out in a 103 for that first 100. Told you I wouldn't disappoint you. Then went at 106, so still hanging on with a fairly good pace there. But then it started to really crumble. 110, and then finishing off with a 111, and that felt horrific. I absolutely ruined at the end. Definitely couldn't keep going. But yeah, obviously I couldn't check any of those splits till after the actual 400, so I had no idea what I was actually swimming at the time, although I could tell I was getting slower. I'm now going to do it with the Form goggles on. Now, I'm not as fit as I have been, so I'd like to say I'll go 420, but I'm not. I'm going to probably go 425, so 5 seconds quicker. That works out at a pace of 106. So I'm going to try and lock into 106 with these goggles. I'm going to have a little bit more of a rest, and off I go. Well, I can confirm when I hit that wall, my goggles displayed 4 minutes and 25 seconds. So I hit it bang on. I went out in 105, so still couldn't hold back and help myself. Went a little bit too hard. I then locked into the 106s, so 106, 106, 106. Came in with the points of a second to 4 minutes and 25, so bang on there. Also, quite an important thing actually is although obviously it was a max effort, gave it my all, I wasn't falling apart on that last 100 like I was on the previous 400, which is really quite important given that if we were swimming and we're trying to pace ourselves well, we won't want to be feeling maxed out and our arms pumped. So definitely felt a lot better coming in at the end of that 400. Okay, I think that is a fairly solid point proven. Pacing is key, particularly given that we still have to bike and run off the back of the swim within a triathlon. So how do we go about pacing, implementing it within our training, and most importantly, pacing on race day? Well, it is, like with most things, a case of practice makes perfect. If we're arriving on race day with no idea of the pace that is required or the effort level required, how do you expect yourself to swim well? So we want to make sure that we're practicing our required pace over and over within our training, getting ourselves to the point that we can eventually swim at this pace without actually having to refer to or rely upon a clock. And normally we work out our pace over 100 meters. So say for instance, you might have a race pace of 1 minute 30 per 100 meters. But obviously you can break this down further to 25 meters or 50 meters, depending on the length of the pool that you're using or the type of session that you're doing. Now there are a couple of different methods to monitoring your pace, one of which is to use simply a watch or a pace clock that you might find on the side of the pool. And you can check your pace at the end of each of your reps, which works pretty well. I've used that for years. One slight drawback to this is that you can only check it at the end of each of your reps. So as your reps become slightly longer, the duration between you being able to check your pace becomes slightly longer, opens up a slightly larger room for error, as I proved just before. Another method, which is new to the scene and rather exciting if you ask me, is the Form swim goggles. And swimming has kind of been stuck in the dark ages for some time now, but I do think that these are bridging the gap on that. And I also think that had I had these a number of years ago, it may well have fixed my inability to pace back then, maybe even saving from being told off by my old swimming coach countless times. But as I showed earlier, these really helped me to pace that 400 time trial a little bit better. I've also been using it a little bit within my own swimming training and using those real-time metrics that are displayed within the lens to help me pace my reps better. Now, there are countless functions and metrics that can be displayed within these lenses, and you can change the configuration of those around. But I've particularly been enjoying using the interval function, and that will display your current pace, your split times. So each time you tumble or you turn, it will start to rack up the distance for you and record that that is a length completed. When you stop at the end of the wall, it will automatically stop the time, it will give you your split time, and it will start a recovery timer. When you then push off the wall again, it will stop that recovery timer and start your interval timer again. And again, showing you these metrics on your pacing and giving you a split time again at the end, all whilst not affecting the vision. Now, both of these methods obviously aren't possible, can't be used during racing or during an open water environment, but that's why it makes it all that more important to use these during training. Now, you may be wondering, what is my pace? And again, you have a couple of options here. If you've raced before, you'll have a previous swim time that you can work out your new predicted swim time from, depending on your current fitness level and how much you feel like you've progressed. Use that time, break that down into a pace over 100 meters and try that out within training. If you just have simply a target time, you haven't raced before, you don't have anything to go off, use that target time. Again, break that down into a pace over 100 meters, but really important here, make sure that you try that out in training to make sure that it is okay. It is a little bit more risky because obviously you don't have anything to go off. Another option is to use critical swim speed, or CSS, that you may have heard us talk about before. And this requires you to do a 400 meter time trial followed by a 200 meter time trial with around 5 to 10 minutes recovery between both of the time trials. Now, these are both from a push start and they should be an all-out effort. And then using your times from those time trials, you can input them into a CSS calculator, and that will give you your CSS pace. Now, this isn't necessarily your race pace, although it tends to work out quite nicely for around Olympic distance race pace, but you should use this more as a guide, a little bit like when you're doing tempo or threshold efforts within biking or running. Now, in terms of sessions, here are a couple of my favorite race pace sessions that will allow you to really dial into that required pace and get you learning how it feels. So the first session is 4 lots of 100 at target race pace, followed by 100 recovery. Repeat that through 4 times to make 20 lots of 100s. Take 20 to 30 seconds recovery between each rep. Now another straightforward but good session using slightly longer reps is 4 lots of 400, all at target race pace with 30 to 40 seconds recovery between each rep. You can obviously start off with fewer reps or a longer recovery time and build up to 4 or even 5 reps with a shorter recovery. So try some of these sessions out in your own training and really try to dial into that required race pace so that hopefully that becomes second nature to you. The idea being that come race day, you won't necessarily need these pace clocks, watches, or fancy goggles because you would use them so much in the lead up to race day. They'd be so used to the pace in itself. Now, I've really enjoyed using these goggles from Form. If you do have any more questions on them, please do drop them in the comment section below. I'll be more than happy to answer them. Now, it's also worth mentioning that Form have actually teamed up with Polar, and through that link up, they're now allowing you the ability to view heart rate through the lens of the goggle when you're using the OH1 or the OH1 Plus heart rate monitors that attach to the top of the goggle strap. And that function will be released just in a couple of months' time. Now, I personally think that this is a really exciting advancement within the swimming market. So I'm really excited to see where this goes and where this develops and how it will help us and further us within the swimming. Now, if you have enjoyed this video, please do hit that thumbs up button. And if you'd like to see more from GTN, just click on the globe and subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to find out a little bit more about critical swim speed or CSS, I've done a video breaking it down, explaining it. You can see by clicking just down here. If you'd like to see our freestyle stroke technique video, you can see that by clicking just down here.